Hi everyone, welcome to another Keys to Success video. This is the second video in the series. Yesterday's was talking about Reinhardt positioning, and everyone seemed to like it, so we're doing another one. Today is on decision making for DPS players, specifically flankers, and today's submission came from an individual named Bisesny. He's player slot 1, and he's playing Tracer. So we're going to be pausing this video pretty early in, and going through kind of the decision-making tree about what you should be doing as a flanker. Now, the interesting part about this video is that immediately right off the bat, the Wrecking Ball from the enemy team is actually going to feed pretty hard right off the bat, so this fight is going to be a 6v5 and they still lose. And part of it is going to be because Bisesny's decisions after the fight breaks out. So they go up one player, they have a 6v5 fight and still manage to lose first fight. So we're going to play this through, and I'm going to show it from Bisesny's perspective, because this is going to be a lot about the mobility and the scouting of flankers and how important that is in your decision-making process. Mobility and scouting just in general are probably two of your strongest tools in your toolkit, not just in Overwatch, but in most games in esports, because scouting allows you to get the information you need in order to pick engagements as well as decide which engagements are favorable, and then mobility allows you to either take those engagements that are favorable or avoid the ones that are not favorable. So mobility and scouting always hugely important, and that's one, that's Tracer's huge strength, as well as actually being able to kind of hit and run once those opportunities do present themselves. So let's take a look. Right off the bat, the Wrecking Ball just does gold things, I guess, and feeds, but the important part will happen right after the Wrecking Ball is taken out. Okay, now at this point the tab menu would have just unlocked, but it's pretty unlikely that people are kind of spamming the tab menu at this point in time. It's more likely, because even if you'll know that the Pharah is there just from the sound of the rockets, you know that the Wrecking Ball is there that you killed them, but even if you do just look at the composition and try and figure things out based on the tab menu, you won't have their positioning really at all. So we're going to switch to Bisesny's perspective here, and we'll see what he's got. So immediately see the Moira and the Reinhardt. You know that he's probably going to be at this choke, so you know that the Reinhardt's going to be at this choke. They've got a Moira with him. Tries to get a little bit of poke, nothing, and we go for this flank. Okay, now right immediately, as soon as we turn this corner, we see the Pharah in the backline. We see the Moira and the Lucio together, as well as the fact that the Moira has just used the orb, as well as we see Deadly Pants on the Mei just to our right. So we now know where every single member of the opposing team is. Now, this is the layout of the fight right now. The Genji, friendly Genji, Genjo, I guess, just used his Swift Strike trying to get some ult charge, I guess. But this is you, gold DPS player on the Tracer. You have successfully scouted every single position that the opponent has. What do you do from this point on? So, just some general thoughts about this position. Let's see if I can get a good camera angle. Okay, and then let's do... Okay, so, yeah, come on. Oh, no. There we go. Okay, so, you are the Tracer right here. Now they've got their supports playing together. The Moira has just used her orb, but the Lucio still has both of his cooldowns. The Mei has used wall, but still has ice block, and we're not sure about the status of the Pharah's cooldowns, and whenever we aren't sure about that status, we assume that there are both of them available here. So we'll say that the first option is going to be to go and try and fight the Pharah. The second option is going to be try and fight the support duo. The third option is going to be try and force out the ice block from Mei. And I'm not even going to really include farm the tank, even though that would normally be an option, just because he is in a safe spot. He's kind of screened by the Mei, who has the threat to headshot you, and then also has just cover as well. Not just the cover from the choke, but the central pillar as well. So if you're the Tracer in this situation, what do you do? And I'll just give you a second. I won't play the Jeopardy theme song, but just think about this through. You don't really have any clear options like a Zenyatta or something like that. The Pharah doesn't have a Mercy, which is a pretty strong candidate. The Moira's already used her orb. That gives her less survivability. The Mei's not looking at you, so you could try and force her ice block with a one clip or something like that. But I'm not trying to purposefully mislead you, but just think about it. If you're the Tracer here, what do you do Dun, dun, dun. Okay, I'm sure if you actually wanted to take some time and think about it, you would have paused the video. But in a real situation, you're not really going to have that much time to reason this out, so you want this to be more or less instinctual. And it's kind of a trick question because you're not really going to hard engage anybody right off the bat. Everybody's full health right now. You have only had one cooldown that's actually been used, and that's going to be the Moira here. But she still has Fade, which is going to make her really easily it's really easy for her to keep herself alive, not mention the fact that the Lucio is right next to her and has both cooldowns. So there's really no good reason for you to actually chase after everyone. If you go after the Pharah like really hard, like triple blink over there, she has both of her cooldowns, as well as like really close range. She can just rocket punch you, and that's enough to do a one-shot. But right here is going to be kind of Tracer strength. So you have all this information, and in this situation where you don't really have anybody that you can hard engage on, we try and look for opportunities to engage on people, but in the meantime, what we try and do is we try and abuse attention. So if we're just going to draw a big circle around the enemy team here, this is kind of the position of danger. So when we're thinking about attention, if you stay, for example, here, or, you know, not literally on the cliff, but like let's just say behind the Pharah right here. As long as you stay outside of the circle, you can assess the threats as they look at you. You know, so if you're like over here, for example, fighting the Pharah, if the supports turn around, you can see that threat. If the Mei looks at you, you can see that threat as well. You want to be on the outside of the opponent's kind of zone of control, looking in. If you actually go inside of this kind of zone of control, it makes it extremely risky. Not only because it's going to be extremely easy for the opponent to actually deal damage to you, but also because you can not very accurately judge the level of threat in your general direction. If you're here fighting the supports, you're not sure where the Pharah is shooting you, and she doesn't even have to change the sightline that she's using when she's already using that sightline to actually attack your team. You know, if you're fighting here, if you try and go for the Mei, the same thing, the Lucio and the Moira have your back, which is not going to be a very good situation. You're really not sure how much threat is being levied against you. You know, you're not sure how much you should or are going to be able to actually stay in this fight. So in the absence of somebody using a cooldown that is going to prevent them from actually winning a duel, or at least surviving a duel, what you do, or surviving a duel against you, what you're going to be doing is kind of like floating around this circle, trying to drag people's attention away from the front line and help the rest of your team. Make your team have as much of a numbers advantage as possible. So let's think about it this way. If you picked option 2 and you go after the support, so let's say you stand in this general area, you know, probably 10 to 15 meters away from the Moira and the Lucio, and fight them in this location. If they look at you, so if the Moira and the Lucio look at you and try and deal with you or shoot back at you or anything like that, this is kind of like a pseudo 1v2. You're not actually trying to get the kill because you're too far away, but you are putting chip damage into them, which they have to deal with. And if they look at you, then those resources are not going to go onto their Reinhardt, which he's in a 1, maybe 2v4 situation. Another thing that you can do is if you use this pillar as cover or use the dojo as cover, dojo is going to be a great location for you to use because the Pharah is sitting here. If you kind of chip down this Pharah slowly, you know, you don't even have to be close. You can still be like 20, 30 meters away and chip her down slowly. If you get her down to like 100 HP or half HP or something like that, she's going to have to kind of use her cooldowns and pull range. Now, you know that the enemy supports are really close range, so they're not really going to be help out the Pharah. Her only real option, unless she's got some pretty mad skills and is going to like concussion booster, one tap you or something like that, is going to be retreating to the mega health pack. But you can get there first. So you can make her basically what's considered a non-factor, where you threaten where you haven't killed her, but you've essentially removed her from the fight. Where if she's at 100 HP, if she kind of gets closer to you while your blinks are recovering, then at any point you can blink over and finish the job pretty easily. She can't get help from her supports, and if she goes for the health back, she's going to be low enough for you to steal that health back and take her out. So you can kind of remove the Pharah from the fight by going over here and just poking at her, forcing her to look at you, which again will remove a lot of pressure onto the front line because those rockets are going to be missing instead of going into the entire rest of your team, maybe hitting a Roadhog direct or splashing off your supports. Or you can try and drag the attention of the supports off of their front line and onto you. The Mei is going to be a really dangerous one just because the right click can actually one-shot you, 100 to 0 if it's a headshot, and the Reinhardt is simply out of your grasp. Now, This is all kind of just little skirmishy things. You want to be as annoying as possible, conserving your cooldowns, because if you use recall, you're a lot less you're a lot less survivable and a lot less threatening. It's the same way that if a Roadhog uses a hook, for example, he's less of a threat afterwards for that period of time. So oftentimes the threat of a cooldown, like Hook, like Recall, for example, is actually just as powerful as actually using that cooldown. If you use that cooldown and don't get value from it, like specifically on Tracer, if Tracer goes in pretty hard and is forced to use Recall and back off, they're going to, or at least should, play quite safe until that is back up. Maybe use the time, if they didn't recall to full health, to get a health pack while it's coming up before they can really truly engage quite hard. Again, another reason for you to look, just skirmish and try and drag some attention off or chip people down is that if you do see one of your teammates, like your Genji in this situation, go onto a target, you can join them. It doesn't really take any comms or communications, just be on that skirmish, keep a wide view of the actual game as it's going on, and then if you see your opponent going for some sort of game plan, or they've got a goal or objective in mind, join them with that gameplay. Now, doesn't really matter too much what you decided on. You could be right, could be wrong. There's no real right answer here, other than I'd play slow, look for opportunities, skirmish, try and drag attention, and trade cooldowns. But let's look at what Besezni does here. Hello, work please. Let's watch it from third-person perspective first. Okay, so the first thing is that Besezni comes in, and instead of trying to actually pick a target, he goes immediately onto the Moira. Now, this kind of tunnel vision is really quite bad because the Lucio is going to be able to see him, and the Pharah, although currently distracted with a Zarya, could have also put a lot of pressure onto this Tracer. So this is putting you directly into the middle of the zone of control. The Lucio's shooting at her. There's the right click. Tries to blink back to her team, but then the recall gets forced out. The second error is that once this recall comes out, Besezni doesn't play safe. Tries to finish off the Moira, but the Moira is still going with the lifesteal and is at pretty much 100 health, or 190, I guess, really only taking 10 damage. Besezni backs off here, which would be good. At this point, I'd be looking for a health pack or something like that, because my cooldown on my... Well, what is the cooldown? Why are you in spawn? Why does it do this? 10 seconds on the recall here. So you have 10 seconds to get a health back and come back. But that kind of really forced engage essentially took you out of the fight. And you, even though you're alive, you're considered a non-factor. And this fight is back to, well, it would have been 5v5 if the Roadhog didn't die, but it's really going to be a 5v4. You're alive, technically, but you're not going to be able to do much without your recall and having kind of blown your load a little bit too early. So, instead of kind of backing off, the Moira, who is still on you, you blink right into the opposing team with no blinks left, no recall, like right in the middle of the opponent. Any one of these guys looking at you could finish you off. And you blink away. And just the Lucio's errant shot manages to finish you off. So the same sort of thing that we were talking about with the Silver Reinhardt is that you don't really need to force anything. Play a lot more around resources and cooldowns. Look for opportunities just through scouting them, and then pick your engagements that are favorable or have become favorable based on your mobility.
Get into position.
Hopefully that gives you some things to think about. There's, I wonder if I should find... Next episode, I'll try and find some higher rank gameplay that actually shows good examples of the concepts we're talking about. That'd be a fun addition to this series. I'll keep iterating on this format. Let me know if this was too simple, or yeah, just keep giving me feedback on this format, and I'll keep changing it, trying to make it better, and we'll get more use out of this replay viewer thing. So that's all for today. Let me know what you thought, if it was too abstract or too small of an example. Yeah, and I will see you tomorrow.